Correct. Well, that's great. I'd like to make a warm welcome to everyone and start by making a land acknowledgement. We want to acknowledge that the province of Alberta was situated on the traditional territories of Treaties 4, 6, 7, 8 and 10, ancestral homeland of diverse First Nations groups, Métis and Indigenous people whose ancestors have walked this land since time immemorial, and whose histories, languages and cultures continue to influence our vibrant community. We pay respect to the Indigenous people of this land, past, present and future, while recognising their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships to this land on which we reside. I'd like to thank you for signing up and attending this training session brought to you by the Digital Economy Programme, a partnership between BusinessLink and Digital Main Street, funded by the Government of Alberta. This is the second in a series of 12 workshops and webinars that will be presented by Social School, and we'd like to congratulate you on taking the next step to take your business online. In addition to these workshops, there are two main ways you can benefit from the Digital Economy Programme. Shop Here, powered by Google, will help with the creation and customization of an online store. You'll be trained how to manage and market your online store, and will be provided with the support that you need to make your online shop successful. The second way that you can benefit is through the digital service squads. These will be launched throughout Alberta in January this year. You'll be able to access free one-to-one support and local assistance from a team of trained squad members with the skills to help you level up your online presence. You can sign up for Shop Here and pre-register for the digital service squad support at dep.businesslink.ca. It's now my pleasure to formally introduce Kelly Doody. She is the founder of Social School, and she's going to be our guide as we explore a wide range of digital marketing topics over the coming months. Hi, Kelly.
Hello, Matt. Thank you so much.
I'm not used to reading so much from a script. So when it comes, it's often not a very natural look, but I got to make sure everyone knows about the program.
Well, no one would fault you for not knowing that one off by heart. That was a very impressive intro. And thank you so much for having me. I am always very honored to partner with BusinessLink in any endeavor over the years. And to see this digital economy program come to life has been really fantastic. And I commend you all, just said, for being a part of it. We are off and running, obviously, with workshop number 2. As Matt said, we're laying the groundwork week over week. We had a really great time talking about brand and voice 2 weeks ago. And that was a nice starting point, just in the sense that, you know, these are fundamental pieces of our brand as we talk, or of our business and our marketing programs, as we talked about at the very end of the first workshop. Laying the groundwork and backing up a few steps sometimes is so necessary, especially when it comes to social media and digital marketing, because so many of us dive in head first and we haven't yet thought about where we're showing up, why we're showing up in these spaces, and what the heck we're going to say when we get there. And then most importantly, which is what we're going to focus on today, is who are our audience members? Who are we speaking to? And otherwise it quickly becomes that spray and pray approach of, let's just put up a billboard on the side of the highway and, you know, try and reach as many eyeballs as we possibly can, regardless of the fact that maybe only 1% or 19% of that particular demographic driving by is actually a possible candidate for what we have to offer. So getting a little bit more strategic about who we're trying to reach and why they need us before we show up and start creating content for them that's going to resonate. And really, let's be honest here, we're not pulling any punches as we all attempt to reopen or survive or get going after and midst still COVID. So really identifying the pain points of our customers, their deepest desires, their hopes, dreams, fears, some of these sort of more emotional pieces that matter when we're crafting content and building our marketing programs. And really what happens is we can scale those messages into, you know, a sales kind of department almost that works while we're sleeping. The sales and marketing, as I like to say, have never been more closely aligned. And if we do our job as marketers, or at least, you know, posting our stories to places where they can be reached and read by millions of people, if not dozens in a digital space, is the best sales tool we've actually got today. So
And I think on that point, like, I think we really saw that during the pandemic of businesses that understood their clients well were the best equipped when it came to pivoting and to changing. Like the ones that were successful didn't go and seek completely new markets doing something radically different. They looked at where their clients had moved to, where they were at now, and how they could serve. It only came from, I suppose, really understanding who their people are, maybe.
Yep. So true. And, you know, none of us have a crystal ball, but I firmly believe that if it was a year ago, let's call it November 2020, where we were just all turned upside down and still wondering what just happened in this last wild year called 2020, it was a lot harder for us collectively to say, okay, we've got to get real about what's ahead here. But now we don't have that luxury anymore. We know enough about this continued uncertainty to say, the one certain thing is that we have to be able to pivot and move and future-proof our businesses no matter what happens next. We have to be able to understand that customer, and we can't stand back and say, well, I don't know what they're going to want next because God knows what crisis is going to shape up next week. Yeah, we're living in a time of crisis and upside down everything. So that's not to say you have to throw out everything and start from scratch by any means, but we need to foresee and foreshadow the needs of our people more than ever before, existing customers, as well as those who we have yet to reach that we want to expand into.
Yeah.
Okay. Am I good to share my screen now, Matt? Can we dive into some nerdy slides if everybody's
for sure. Yeah,
okay, awesome. Okay, let me just get into this here. Okay, so bear with me as I just move this around a bit. The team was kind enough to post this week's workbook, and hopefully you're able to view that. If you can't, it will be provided after the fact as well, and it should be available to you as a link. Let me just shut down some windows here because I'm working on a tiny screen. Okay, so again, we talked about brand voice and just kind of overall ideas for who we are and what we want to become. I'm really failing at this here. I'm just going to do a full screen share. New share.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry, you guys. Let's try this again. Google Chrome, and then I say
perfect.
Present. Okay. So hopefully you can see this. Let me know if you can't. And we're building on those fundamental pieces. Don't worry if you weren't here for workshop number 1. Please, it's all you know, step into the party and take what you can from it. We are, as we mentioned, honored to be your partner in this, and Social School is on a mission to literally help small businesses in particular better tell their story and grow their reach and revenue in return, particularly in online spaces. So we're going to talk more deeply about our values and our brand tone and voice and that whole purpose-driven marketing world that we're living in today, and how we communicate with our customers in a way that first and foremost is crystal clear. I love the line, if you confuse people, you lose people. And so many of us are caught up in technical jargon or overly conveying or trying to communicate what we do and who we are and where we come from and how many awards we've won. And literally we're speaking to an audience of goldfish-sized attention and tiny amounts of patience for you to tell them all the backstory. I just want to know if this is for me. My selfish need to understand if I should continue further into your website or your LinkedIn channel, or I should just go find somebody else. So it is so imperative that we have these really clear answers to the question, what do you do? Who are you? What are you about? Is this for me? I can't state this enough. And this is one of those go backwards and start from there if you don't feel really solid in, you know, your bio statements or your home pages, et cetera. We're going to look at some of those today. The exercises that we've got for you, there's a few of them. Today is a bit more of a workshop than a webinar, and that's purposeful. That's because we promised you a lot of how-tos, a lot of activation as opposed to just, you know, being taught or spoken to. We want you to leave these workshops and this series really feeling like you've actually activated some very important pieces of your marketing, and that's where these workbook exercises and leading questions come in. There's 6 pages, 6 exercises in that workbook. You don't have to do all 6. Pick the ones that are meaningful for you. We're not going to get them all fleshed out in this next hour, but hopefully there'll be a couple there that you really can think about, take home with you, work with your team, and just nail them down so that you feel really good going forward. All right, when we think about tone and voice and values, I like to break it up into a few simpler words, like connection for starters. We talked about this last week, this exact question. So what do you do? And even if they're not saying it to your face at a cocktail party or a trade show, they are asking that question when they land on your website. And what they're really saying is, what's in it for me? I'm selfish. I have limited time and attention, and I've got a lot of choice in today's day and age, and I'm going to go somewhere else if you don't immediately solve my problems. We talked about the unique value proposition, whereby we know what it is we do really well and that we need to convey that, and that's what matters to people. It's not necessarily your secret sauce, but it is the reason that I should choose you over the other car mechanic down the street or the other tax accountant. Like, you got to tell me what that is. We don't know. So what do you do and why should I care? This is what we're trying to really nail down when we talk about brand and voice and tone. Taglines, headlines, captions using the words you and your. Speaking the language of your people, answering their pain points. And instead of saying, remember that old movie, I think it was Glenn Ross, always be selling, always be closing, I think it was ABC. Now we're saying always be serving. That might sound exhausting, but how can you help your customers and your prospects? We're past the point of questioning, why should I be on social media? Do I really need to show up there? Most of us understand that it's this free landscape of tools to reach our customers where they are in their Instagram feed. And we've stopped asking, should I be there? And now it's, how do I resonate with people once I arrive? And the sooner that you make it about them and not you, you will do that. A couple of home pages here, because I love to look at really high quality, best in class websites. And a lot of them come from multinational companies. It is the way it is. I often say, what would Nike do? Not because I'm obsessed with Nike, but because I know they have the best copywriters and digital advertisers and content creators on the planet, and huge budgets. And it just is a constant reminder of the tight and bright and simple marketing campaigns that they're running that we can all learn from, where less is more. Wix is a DIY website builder. Some of you might have your websites built on Wix. I love this line so much. Create a website you're proud of. Not only do they know my pain point as a small business owner that I really need a new website, as 95% of us often feel, I've got to feel like I can do it myself, but also I'm so embarrassed of my current site. Please don't go see it. Like, I hear this daily, and I think we can all relate to it. So they're using the word proud and speaking to my heart of like, oh my God, really? That's possible for me? Tell me more. And there's that blue button, get started. BarkBox, subscription box for your dog, if that's your thing. Now, as opposed to the spray and pray approach where they're putting this billboard up on the side of the road, assuming that there's, millions, if not tens of thousands of people who love their dogs enough to have a subscription box of toys for them every month. They're probably tailoring and segmenting this website or their ads to the right audience in advance. And that's the beauty of digital advertising and email marketing, etc., which we'll get to in later workshops when we target the right people with the right content. But when I land on this page, probably because I was led there, not because I typed in www.barkbox.com, that's not often what we do. We're led places from social, from Google, and I find this. And it either solves my problems and speaks my language and makes me feel an emotional connection of some kind, and I dive in, or I bounce. I'm out, it's not for me, no problem. But the simplicity of the language, give your dog exactly what they want, is very different from saying the world's best dog toy subscription box. It is speaking the language of the people who are going to take action. A simpler version. This I screenshot. I often visit Nike's website just to see what their campaign of the season is. This was last spring when we sort of thought COVID was over and we were all about to emerge for spring. It was about the same time that really fantastic chewing gum ad came out. I think it was Excel, but shame on me, I can't even remember. Remember those ads? And it was like, oh my God, we all delusionally thought we were gonna like emerge and be really like hairy and disheveled and start kissing in the park. Well, at about that same time, Nike read the room and said, come out and play. And it was perfect. And they didn't use you and your, they tightened it even more. And it was just so timely and applicable. I mean, this is where I feel like copywriting genius can come in. And I'm a nerd about this stuff because I also worked at a newspaper, a tabloid newspaper, where it was a challenge every day to see who could write the best headlines in 3 words or less, and who could say in 2 words what someone else would have to say in 20. Brevity is hard, but when it works well and when you hit that really well, people know it and they feel it and they want more. Another example of that I'll quickly give is you know, we learn so much from news media, PR industry, press releases, and pitching to journalists, because now we all do that every day. We write our own press releases when we create content or blogs or e-newsletters, and we hope that the journalist, i.e. our user, our subscriber, is going to pick up on it and do something with it. They're going to click, they're going to take action, they're going to want more and go to your website. But if it doesn't, you know, immediately connect with them or give them the kind of resources, insights, entertainment, transformation that they're hoping for, forget it. They're going somewhere else. There's other stories to read, other content to consume. So again, back to that unique value proposition. This time, we're defining our offer a little bit more. You might have multiple offers because you have 2,800 SKUs in your grocery store, or you sell multiple versions of your services and they're always custom depending on the client. No problem. Let's think of it then as the singular problem you're trying to solve. And this is where we really get to that emotional side of the pain point. You know, it's that question of what do you do? Okay, well, what do you really do? You know, I do tax accounting. Well, what do you really do? Well, I take one of the most painful pieces of people's small business every year and I make it go away. Or I lift, you know, the weight off their shoulders and create a hallelujah moment for them. Or I hold their hand to get them to the finish line instead of just sending them instructions on how to file the taxes, whatever that is. Hopefully it's shorter than that. So what are you trying to achieve and solve? And again, we're kind of just building on those pieces from 2 weeks ago where we are talking about the emotions and the feelings that we want to instill them with. While we were kind of layering these things together, I want to flip to the bottom question there. What primary objections might they have? And this is an opportunity for a whole other type of content for us when it comes to pushback. You know, what do you know your people are holding back on, and how can you address that in some of your content perhaps? Or is it just a more generic misunderstanding of your industry or your offering and some myth busting that you can perhaps weave into your content and your content categories, which we're going to get to in the workshops ahead, where we really work on the what am I saying, not just the why am I saying it and how am I speaking to people. Okay, I'm going to keep going here. Remember that I said at the outset, you don't have to do all these exercises. A lot of these are meant to be leading questions. This one and the bio coming up in exercise 3 are 2 that I would, however, love it. And I know Matt would too, if you wrote them out, and maybe you want to share them in the chat, because this kind of stuff can really shift your ability to connect with people in a meaningful way.
And Kelly,
so the
sorry,
10
I just want
test.
to
Within 10 seconds. I'm going to give you 10, but normally I'd say 6, because reportedly that's the size of the average attention span on the internet today. And a goldfish's attention is 8 seconds, in case you're wondering. So we are more pathetic than that. But let's say I give you 10 seconds of my time. I'm on your website. I got led there one way or another. And my question is, what the heck is this? Is it for me? That's what I'm trying to solve in my selfish world, in my limited time, in my multiple choice world I live in, where I could go elsewhere. What do you do, make, sell, or offer? And could I turn around and say that to someone else? What's in it for me? Like, is this the product and service that I'm after? Who are you? I would describe you as a company that's forward thinking and progressive, or kind of old school and reserved and fairly buttoned up, or, you know, run by entrepreneurs, whatever that description is. Am I getting that sense right away? I know this sounds lofty, but hopefully a few of these things we can say yes, yes, yes to. And then who we really are. So yes, we might be a group of insurance brokers, but who we really are like family-oriented, community-minded baseball players. How do we get those little human interest pieces across? While we can't all share our most meaningful content, although if you have any, please by all means post it in the chat. But time and time again, I hear people say, you know, what's frustrating but eye-opening is that the most highly resonating content we ever had in our financial services company is when every staff member posted their favorite podcast. And then we turned that into your favorite Christmas treat, and then your dog's name. And before you know it, we had these raving fans that couldn't wait to open our cheeky e-newsletters that also were laden with financial advice, but showed the humans behind the brand and the company and made people connect with us on a deeper level. That last question there is quite important too. This is a bit of a user experience, technical or tactical question, but where do I go from here? Hopefully that's clear as well. I land on your site or on your social feed. I know who you are, what you're about, and I can find some way to go further and deeper into what you have to offer. Usually it's a call to action button on your website, but it could also be a link in your bio or something like that.
Kelly, can I just, do you mind just going back 2 slides to exercise 1? Because I know that you said, some of these things are like optional and, and do them. I think that exercise 1 there is so fundamental for every business. Like, I've been really lucky in the last couple of years to work with hundreds of small businesses. Before they write their business plan, before they do anything, these are the questions that they need to answer. And if you're running a business and able to answer these questions, this is the work that you have to do. Before you go and decide anything else about the colors on your website or the name of your company, like, it doesn't matter. Like, if you cannot answer these questions, I think any marketing plan, but any business plan, I just don't know what you base it on. Like, these, for me anyway, are just so fundamental. And people who can answer these well, the rest is much, much easier. Like, it's when you don't have these things, it's much harder. Yeah, sorry. So I'll get off.
No, I totally agree. Thank you. I really agree. I hate to say that some of the marketers and the businesses that have really created those SWOT analysis and business plans have a better starting point, but you're absolutely right. And not all of those pieces are applicable. And some of them will just collect dust in your business plan binder forevermore. But others become these like rally cries. 2 weeks ago, we talked about sticky content. What's that one thing you do, sell, make, or provide that people remember you for? And in a lot of cases, it's just your tagline, or it's that one thing that someone else can describe to someone.
And I'll say, I come from a kind of point of personal failure with this. Like, I had a business and the thing that I thought was so important, it was a cleaning business, specialist cleaning business. And we used a 37-point checklist. No one cared whatsoever. Like, I thought that was going to be the market. I thought that was going to be it, the marketing thing. We had a 37-point checklist to make sure no one cared. What they cared about is they could book online. That's the second that I understood that, like, it was transformed. So yeah, I definitely.
That's amazing. Sometimes it hurts, and other times it's just a really good wake-up call. Yeah. And this is not to say dumb it down. I think that sometimes we get confused, or it's a misnomer to say simplify, dumb it down. That's not what we're doing. We're just putting it in the language of people that don't speak our language. And if you're using technical jargon or speaking to your car industry peers or your cleaning supply company competitors, you're missing the boat, because I am not your competitor and I sure didn't grow up in this. It's why I'm hiring you. I have no idea what lingo to use. So in fact, if you could even go beyond that and speak my layperson's language in your marketing and your blogging, chances are you're going to do that much better, because now you're showing up when I search the wrong terminology for your cleaning supplies or services or whatever it is. So really being in the heads of our customers and prospects, knowing their objections, pain points, fears, desires, but also, expectations and search terminology.
For sure. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Matt. So speaking of clarity, and that line, if you confuse, you lose. I'll just keep repeating it because I find it so important. And I think so many of us can relate to that when we land on other people's websites or we get them on the phone and we're like, I still have no idea what you're doing. And, I often use the grandma test because she's my metric. My 90-year-old grandmother, I learned this actually the hard way once. A few years ago, I was pivoting into an online model from a service-based agency, doing marketing services for people towards teaching them how to do it. And I thought, no big deal. I'll go from selling a service to people who know and trust me to selling a product to strangers on the internet, in which I need a whole lot more volume because it's a lot more of a affordably priced product. So I was going to these networking meetings and I was showing up online on chat and group and all of these things. And I just kept spewing what I just described. Well, I'm changing to empower people to do their own marketing and blah, 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 blah. And I would just literally watch people glaze over. In the same way, my dad and my brother, I've watched, and my husband now, they glaze over if I say something that takes more than 10 seconds. No slight on them. We just communicate very differently. And so, it wasn't until I was literally building out my final course. I went to the Okanagan. I stayed at my grandmother's place, her little condo on the lake. And she came to visit one day and she said, "So Kelly, what are you doing?" And I said, "Grandma, I teach people how to get media coverage." And she went, "Oh, that sounds interesting." And it was the first time someone actually got what I was trying to sell. So really have to check ourselves here in speaking, not layperson's language, but consumable, compelling sound bites. So who are we? We need to be crystal clear and what we about who we are and what we offer, and this cannot be overstated. Can we make someone understand and want to know more within 10 seconds and 1 to 2 sentences? So we do this really well through our about statements. In our social feeds, they're in the form of a little bio. And if it's Facebook, you get a whole lot more real estate in your about section. If it's on our website, we often have an entire page dedicated to this. And a point worth making here is that the about page on our websites is statistically the second most viewed page after the homepage. And it's human nature. We're curious. We want to know who we're working with, buying from, what this company stands for, and are they worth our time? Do we align? Do we share values? Whatever. So to waste that real estate on where you went to school and how many awards you won and how important you are versus solving my problems and showing that you get me, you want to help me, and you're the absolute answer to my prayers is a real shame. If I need to know where you went to school, I'm going to go find you on LinkedIn. But your about page needs to be about your customer and what they're hoping you're going to solve for them versus what about you. So a 6-word formula. This is one of my favorite ways to define ourselves a little bit clearer going forward. It's I or we, some form of the word help, teach, build, show, train, transform, whatever. Who it is you help. Hopefully it's something a little more specific than people. Achieve what? What is the end result? Transformation, hallelujah, something. Couple examples here for you. Instead of saying, "I'm a best-selling author and I have 1 million subscribers on my podcast. My name is Jonathan Fields." He says, "I help people live a good life." And we say, "Oh, interesting. Tell me more." And it might be a little weird to say that in person. "Hi, nice to meet you. What's your name?" "Jonathan Fields. I help people live a good life." You'd be like, "Well, that's weird." But if I read that on the internet or on his homepage, I'm compelled, and it does speak to what he does because, he's a kind of mental health professional and writes wonderful novels and hosts wonderful podcasts. This gal is a divorce lawyer. We build better families. Really interesting. And what a way to frame it. And if she needed to, she could shift this a little bit depending on the environment or the medium. If she's put on a business card, she might say it slightly differently. If she's meeting someone at a conference or a trade show, she might shift it around a little bit. This guy here is a sort of futurepreneur. He's a tech influencer who's a trends seeker and setter with his digital technologies. But he focuses a lot on sales, and thus we introduce people to their customers instead of saying I build and sell sales platforms and tools and tech. So is there a way that you can leave people compelled, curious enough, but clear as well on what it is you do? We can also shorten these. Let's say that instead of saying, we build better families as a divorce lawyer / counseling service, we can take out the we, or we can shorten a little bit in the same way Nike did. You should come out and play. It's just come out and play, or, finding ways to make it as tight and concise as we possibly can. The elevator pitch, however, is a little bit longer. And this is like, the elevator pitch terminology comes from what could you say to someone about yourself or your business in the length of time it takes to ride an elevator together. So 10 to 30 seconds tops, and really clearly explaining what you offer in their terms. So, there's plenty of examples on the internet or elsewhere in your world, I'm sure. But really just an intro that keeps us wanting more and sticking around and reading on. Yours and or your company values and then something about what you do. Again, that transformation. We make this, and this is what it does to help people hear for the first time. You look at this longer form about statement and you see how you could really shorten it up. We help people hear for the first time, or we are dedicated to ensuring that people can hear the world around them, whatever it is. But we're using the words we and they and people and your, etc. So remembering so much about the people that you're focused on, and this is really, or the people you're serving, this is going to help us so much when we start to create content in the coming weeks, and our content pillars and categories that allow us to create this varied and interesting storytelling aspect to our content marketing, because we're not just focused on that service or product as like this promotional piece. I think I might have used the example of Red Bull a couple weeks ago with the can in hand that you never see. They don't have to stand there holding a can of Red Bull. They have strategically chosen to let the people and the influencers and the extreme events that they put on and take part in lead their marketing story, because it says so much about who they are. They don't have to be product forward. The fiber optic internet company I mentioned Axia, showing the people that they've served and the lives they've transformed as a result of their service, and using that as interesting, compelling human interest stories instead of photos of the installation of fiber optic cabling. Some of the best, examples of this come in the form of the life coaches, the mental health gurus, like Tony Robbins. But this is exactly what we're talking about. You land on Tony Robbins's page, and sure, the tagline there, the subheader, does talk about his credibility. And it does lead me to think, he might be legit. But the words transform your life are so powerful that if that's what I'm after, some kind of transformation and a reset, or, oh my God, somebody show me which way to go with my life, this is for me, I can't wait to push that start here button. I want more. And again, that one you could see would be a little longer. We help people transform their life through meaningful connections, or just transform your life. Another one, Gabby Bernstein, another such meditation lifestyle guru. Some of you will know her and buy from her and download her books and whatnot. She's a pretty neat lady. But I love this line. Rather than talking about being a best-selling author and running sold-out shows and inspiring women around the world, she says, become the happiest person you know. Start now. And again, if that's what you're after, it's a yes, please. Where do I sign up? How do I begin? We worked with a Calgary chiropractic firm called Curo Chiropractic, and they loved that example so much that they changed around their tagline. They were just opening their beautiful new studio or clinic. They were launching all their marketing campaigns, and a lot of it was product forward. Calgary's #1 all-round, well-rounded wellness clinic for chiro massage and acupuncture or something like that. And instead, just become the healthiest person you know. How compelling. If that resonates, you're going to hopefully dive in and want more. So your challenge, the 6-word bio. This, I promise you, will be quite transformational if you can nail it down in terms of leading people to want more after you give them the initial soundbite. Then the elevator pitch, if you need, and most of us do, a bit of a longer form of that. I encourage you to craft that and just hone it and ask for feedback and continue to iterate it and become more and more about your customers' needs as you go. There's no shortage of articles on the internet and really fantastic examples of the best about pages out there. And some of them do focus on the staff heavily, the team, because after all, we do want to know about the company. You're speaking my language, you're telling me how you're going to solve my problems, but you're doing it by telling me what you do. And a lot of times that comes down to who's on your team and who's behind this and who's the founder. And, there's super clever ways that people have done this. And I love Googling these kind of case studies, especially when we get to see those people. And it's not just the CEO and his earnings report or his outlook for 2022 investor documents, blah, blah. It's like his favorite baseball team, the best record he ever bought, and also some industry expertise. The 4 to 8 word headline. So this is where, if we can, we're going to craft a few of these. This is exercise number 5. So in 30 seconds, this is what your business is, does, sell, gives, etc. You're not going to write this in 3 minutes. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it's worth it, I promise. And then you'll know why that matters. And then this is the headline opportunity. So, much like the Tony Robbins example, or Nike, just looking at some ways that when we land on your website, you might make it a little bit more clear and compelling and about your audience. When we get into audience identification in 2 weeks, we're going to identify exactly who they are and what they hope from you. But this is a starting point. This is us starting to say, I know you, I understand you, and I am the solution to your problem. So, sort of sales 101. Does anyone have any questions that they want to bring up or that we can?
There is lots going on in the chat, and I'm actually just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. So because the chat is going quite quick, if you have put a question in the chat, it would be great for me if you could actually put it in the Q&A section. It just helps us kind of get a little bit of order in there. There is one kind of interesting point, and it might be quite technical, Kelly, really, is that someone says, you know, I'm a solopreneur and I'm come to write my about page. Like, what can I use other than the I all the time? I don't want to just be saying, I do this, I do that. I know you may have,
Yeah, no, that's such a good question. It's a hard one. It's kind of similar to when, you know, we're asking people to get real and pull back the curtains in their content. And they're like, well, you're also telling me not to make it all about me. So where do I even begin? And I think that's where, you know, start small. It doesn't have to be a diatribe about you know, your history or where you're coming from. It could literally just be starting with that question of what problem am I trying to solve? Who am I trying to solve it for? And why am I the one to do so? And if then you can craft that into a tiny bit of a story of 3 or 4 paragraphs, you're in a really good starting point. You know, you can add in the about me and put in some personal tidbits or some kind of fun things, 5 things you need to know about me or whatever it is, so that we know who's behind it as well as the reason that we should work with you. But I think a nice blend of the two. And there's so much room here for creativity, and there's so much room to do what's different than a lot of solopreneurs, which is where they think that place is for them to talk about how qualified they are. But honestly, we're less concerned about your qualifications than we are about whether you're going to help us, right? And I guess they kind of work in the same. But if you can speak my language and stand shoulder to shoulder with me, it's like sales 101. Show me that you know me, understand me, and can help me get to the finish line. And it can be done through testimonials and through, you know, anecdotes or examples or case studies in your content. But on that about or bio statement, it can be as simple as, I know you, here's why I've built what I built, and here's what I hope to do, and I can't wait to meet you, that kind of thing.
Perfect. Thanks, Kelly. And another question I just want to address is about, can people get feedback on these exercises? And I just want to say there are 2 kind of options for this. So one is the Business Link team. So there's a 1-800 number at Business Link, there's a ask us at businesslink.ca, and there's a frontline team there who work with entrepreneurs every day, helping them with questions like this. So absolutely, there are a group of people who can support you with many of these things. And the other part is directly through the Digital Economy Program, as part of the process of working with an e-commerce coordinator or a digital service squad member. You're going to use this in developing your online marketing adoption. So there is definitely support either through Business Link, if this is kind of more maybe of an early stage that you're thinking about these questions for the first time, but also through the Digital Economy Program if you're thinking directly about how I can use this to get online. Yeah,
that's awesome. No problem. And don't forget about the grandma test. That's also a really good one sometimes. Go ask your grandma if she gets what you're selling, or your community, your neighbors, your kids, you know, classmates or moms or whatever it is. When we're working in isolation as entrepreneurs and business owners sometimes, or very small teams, the biggest thing that I find us to be missing, and this is why I do love agents as much as I love the DIY, agencies are fantastic for brainstorming. And that is where creative gold comes through. So even if it's with your sales team or your engineers or people, people that you wouldn't think have these great ideas, I promise you, if you dedicate an hour or 2 every month to sitting down and cleverly crafting some of these ideas or working together to identify who your audience is, some of these exercises, you'll be really surprised what you get in return. Or likewise, asking a stranger for feedback on that about statement can go a long way too. Is this clear to you? Do you understand this? Would you work with me?
I'm just going to ask one more question that's here in the chat because I think it is directly relevant. Many of these business owners perhaps have numerous services, multiple streams of income for themselves. How do they manage that there? Because it's about talking to a customer base, but perhaps they do some consultancy and then maybe they run some workshops separately. And yeah, how do we do that?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about it in terms of clarity of service offering, that can really be a challenge. I think many of us, especially the long-winded types, have a really hard time. We're very married to every piece of our content and our service offerings, and sometimes to a fault, right? We don't make it super clear as to how people can proceed with us. So I would encourage you to, separate things into different platforms if needed. If it's warranted that you have 3 separate websites, by all means, that's very, doable and important, because clarity above all else. And then perhaps you take someone on a journey, so if it's about describing what you do for a new buyer, a new lead or prospect, keep it as simple as possible. Don't take me to the finish line with the graduated project or product that I'm going to buy from you when I've been working with you for 2 years. It's that customer journey that we have to be aware of, and people enter it at all points. They've heard about us because of service C, but they are really interested in service A. We've got to make it easy for them to understand what we do and sell, but we also don't want to overwhelm them before they even get a chance to work with us on something in the early stage. So I don't know if that addresses the problem or the question. I think in general, we have to, if it comes down to it, I was working with a gal this morning and she said, I have so many ideas for content, but I feel like the most important thing is the clarity for us right now that's missing. And I said, bang on, right there. Worry less about whether you should be making TikToks than whether or not your homepage needs an overhaul or a refresh, and a pulling back of some of that immense amounts of content that's on there that is just confusing people. I think we can't underestimate how tight some of these websites are. And in our website classes and further down into the workshop series, we're going to play the survivor game, where you literally get 1 tagline, 1 headline, 3 images, and 1 call to action on your website, as if it was like scarcity mentality. Don't overdo it, because too many of us have way too much going on, and that is not modern website. It's not a mobile friendly website, and it is not user friendly for today's, again, user. I hope that helps.
It definitely does. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So the final piece of this here, as we're trying to craft some of these taglines, headlines, bio statements, is just really knowing our voice. And remember, we talked a couple weeks ago about, well, how do I show up on LinkedIn versus Instagram? And what's my purpose over here versus over there? And are they different? If you are rooted in who you are really strongly, and you know your voice and your purpose and your company values, it won't matter where you show up, we'll feel it coming through. I use the example, I think, of Apple, where Apple is Apple, whether you're at their beautiful, flagship store in Central Park, New York, or you're unboxing your new iPad at Christmas time, or you're watching a Super Bowl ad. We feel it. We know their values. We know their look and feel and tone and voice. So the clearer we can get on those things, the better we'll come across in the seamless kind of manner that people understand. So a few prompting kind of leading questions here for us to think about. Ways to define ourselves a little bit and our brand's personality. What if we were to come up with 3 words that capture it or capture us, and then we limit them with but nots? This can be a very helpful tool. So I'm resourceful, but I'm not boring. We're fun, but we're not immature or unprofessional. Is there some words that you can come up with there that then you can kind of box a little bit further to get to know yourselves, and then ideally people get to know you better as a result with? Differentiation. Well, what is the current tone of your competition or the industry or the landscape that you're entering? Is this something you want to emulate and fit right in with? Or is there opportunity for you to stand out? Where could you be a little bit contrarian maybe? Or, focus more on your industry expertise or your testimonials or some of these content categories we're going to get into in a couple weeks that really help you differentiate yourself, not just in your offering and your quality of service or product, but in the way you speak about it. Listen, this is so important. When we get into platform by platform opportunities and variations, we're going to look at certain platforms that allow us to literally gain so much research and insight into our customers and what they're talking about and what their pain points are simply by showing up where they are. For example, we step into Twitter, we're even using a dummy account, or we're not actively posting, but we have a hashtag search on there. I work in the beef industry and I have a hashtag search on for Canadian beef or E. coli or whatever. And now I'm part of the conversation. I'm ahead of the game because I'm listening to what people are saying, what the sentiments are, what the needs and desires are. And then I can step in with the right language and tone and timing in the right places to solve those problems, answer those needs. We'll get deeper into that too in some of the website workshops later on and the SEO workshops. There's a tool called answerthepublic.com that's one of my absolute favorites, where I type in dog trainer Canada. And what I see is all the questions being asked about dog trainers in Canada. How much should a dog trainer cost? Where do I find a great dog trainer? When should I hire a dog trainer in my puppy's life? And then I can literally turn that around and write those questions out as my blog titles or my content captions. When you should hire a dog trainer, how much a dog trainer should cost. I am answering the public after listening to their questions, and I am shining to the top of the search results in return. Next, be bold. How can we speak directly to our audience? 2 weeks from now, when we do audience identification and we're defining these personas and these pain points and needs and desires and the things they want from us, we're going to be able to craft an individual, real or not, and we're going to know a lot about them. What kind of wine do they drink? What kind of magazines do they read? Where would they travel to? What kind of car do they drive? What are their political beliefs? And we're crafting this persona for the sole purpose of being able to speak to them as if we know them intimately. And you and I both know that if I'm speaking to a friend and I'm telling them about what I do versus suddenly speaking to an entire room full of strangers or God knows who on the internet void, I'm so much more authentic. And I connect with them and I answer their problems and I solve their queries and I give them what they need. And then of course, being so authentic in our content creation, we capture so many more hearts and minds as a result. So really trying to find inspiration in our content and being as again, real, authentic and human as we can, which will continue weaving that theme throughout. And then engage. I think, get some of us as perfectionists or as, we're crippled with paralyzed by anxiety or where to even begin. We need to stop trying so hard. We just need to join the conversation. I often say that the people doing social the best are the ones who are just doing it. And I'm often envious of them because they're not a loser perfectionist like me who's agonizing over that right blog post. They're just showing up and they're polished, but they're not perfect. And it's that old saying, done is better than perfect. We've created our strategies. We know our brand voice and our purpose. And then we go and create a content plan, which we're going to do in the coming weeks. Then we create a process for getting it done. So it's seamless and, dare I say, easy, but pleasant. And then we're able to just engage with people and it becomes actually quite enjoyable as opposed to this massive chore.
And we learn when it's out there as well, don't we? Like by putting it out there, we learn what engages people, what people find interesting, what gets people to call us. By sitting on our desktop, we don't learn anything. I definitely agree with that. I see that all the time. The things we'll put in the chat, paralysis analysis there. But we get in our own head that it has to be perfect. But definitely a B- is better than an A+ that's not submitted,
Yep. And some of you may not relate to this, but I think about the things that matter or that we know matter in our business. And I'm going to wager that a lot of us know how important social and digital marketing is going forward. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. And I'm also going to take a stab and assume that a lot of us feel like we should do a lot more than we are, myself included. I don't go on Facebook or Instagram very often because I have this shame spiral that occurs because I'm like, I'm just not posting enough. And that's a whole other issue because I just want to do it so well, but I can never get to it and I'll start tomorrow and blah, blah, blah. So I think so many of us get caught up in, again, assuming it should be perfect or just right. Just being able to start feels so good. It is more of a load off than you're going to expect. And if you had a fire poker, like I used to at the Calgary Sun when I was a daily columnist, and they were like, They would say to me all the time, it's a daily duty. Get your column in. It's 5 o'clock. And I'd be like, no, I can't publish this. But what made me publish every day. It was an editor that forced me to, and it was a job that made me write a daily column for the newspaper the next day. And I use that as an example to remind myself, I used to do this every day, whether I was inspired or not. And it was a process, and it was, just a habit, as they say, the creator's habit. The line, writers write, we get better as we go, all of these things. If you wrote 12 blog posts next year, that's probably 12 more than you wrote last year, but don't try and write 48 of them. Let's start with what's sustainable. We're going to build out our content plans in the coming weeks, but I really want us to kind of start open-mindedly. And I'm going to tell you right now that we're going to push you to do something that you feel good about, that you can build on, not something that is going to overwhelm the heck out of you, that you're sick of and totally frustrated by 3 weeks in. It feels like social media has just derailed every other aspect of your business, because none of us can operate that way. So we have some processes and tools coming up for you that are really going to help, as I said, roll it out, but going into it open-mindedly and, knowing that it's not fixed. This is fluid. We're evolving with our audience and the needs and the market, the platforms as they change. I often had people say to me, I don't want to get into Instagram stories or reels because, I heavily invested in Google Plus and look where that got me. Okay. Or Twitter. But you know what? Twitter might have been spectacular for you from 2009 to 2013. Don't worry about it. Just hop into the next conversations over here. Go where your people are and stop being so married to these content platforms as, these permanent pieces of your business. They're great for right now. Show up and show us what you're about. So we'll end this with just some final suggestions here on defining your tone. These are I didn't make these categories up. These are sort of universally used as a way to define who you are and what you're about. So just some really overarching ideas there for you. If you can almost circle or kind of further define yourself through these words, I think that can be helpful for some of us. Although we're not married to them and you can sometimes fall within the gray area, that's okay too. So final exercise there. You can fill that out if you feel like it's relevant to you, describing your personality, fleshing out those but not statements, and then further describing the tone of your industry as well as your brand and where you might fit within it, whether that's the same, different. You might be a renegade outlier who's going to really shake things up to you. And yeah, we can't wait to see you do it.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kelly. Before we go into those questions, we have kind of repeat comments coming through. So I just kind of want to reiterate here. So if you're looking for some feedback on the work that you've done today, Kelly and I aren't in a position to review. I think we've got over 100 people on here. So we're not going to be doing those. But the team at BusinessLink, they work with businesses every day, and they're there to help and support. So that's definitely a group that can support you with those. So that's definitely the approach to take there. There's a contact form on the website. It's businesslink.ca is the place to go for that help and that support. And I'll make them aware that I've made that kind of referral from this group of people as well, so that they feel kind of ready to be able to support there. But also the digital economy program is the next step through for you. So dep.businesslink.ca is another route through there. So I'll just quickly, with 6 minutes left, Kelly, I'm just going to take a look at some of the questions that we have here. Marty asks a similar question. Can he have a website review? That again, that's not a service that's kind of directly offered by us right now, but the BusinessLink team are more than happy to look at your marketing materials with you and point you in the right direction of where to go. And the digital economy program can support you further. In terms of other questions that we have, we will be sending out recordings of this very presentation, the slides. You're going to have the workbook, the worksheets, everything that you need from this today. Okay, sorry, one thing, the recording does not go on the site. It gets sent to them. It gets sent to you directly. Sorry, I'm just having someone tell me there. Someone said, I attended the first webinar. Was there a link to any of that presentation. You certainly should have received that. Please feel free to email me and I can send it you if you didn't. So my email, everyone, is matt@businesslink.ca. If there are any problems around that. Matt, why does it feel so much harder to talk about myself simply when I have no problem doing it for other people? It's such a good thing, isn't it? It's easy for me to be an expert for other businesses, but if I was to do this myself, so hard.
So hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think that's sometimes where, oh man, we almost have to ask other people for feedback. What did you love working with me on? Or if you're not ready to go there and start touting your own expertise, do it through testimonials. That's such a great way, and it builds such credibility. And sometimes they come in naturally on Google or Google reviews or your Yelp reviews or whatever, and you can really just easily post those to your site or repurpose them into your social content. But it's not easy. I absolutely hear you. I think though too, if you're talking less about yourself and more about your people and the people you're serving, it gets easier.
That's so true. And those reviews are such a great starting point, aren't they? From being able to see how other people see you is really, really useful. Yeah.
It is true.
Yeah, perfect. Excellent. Well, on that very note, I'm not going to return to my script and finish off the script I had. And all I'm going to say is that we look forward to seeing people again on the next event, which is on December the 2nd at 11 a.m. So some slightly different times there. That's a Thursday. But you can sign up for that on the Business Link website, businesslink.ca/events. And also, it's time to go and sign up for the digital economy program on dep.businesslink.ca. Thank you so much, Kelly, for speaking today. And thank you to our wonderful attendees who are very, very active in the chat. And I'm sure there's lots I missed there, but thanks for everyone's involvement today. It's been great. Thanks.
Thank you all so much. See you soon.
Bye. Bye.